Why this time it's different. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of The Future in 5, where I share my thoughts, ideas, and commentary on the future of work in 5 minutes or less. I was recently speaking at the Staffing Industry Analyst Conference, and I gave a keynote there on the freelancer economy. And during the Q&A portion, one of the attendees raised their hand. I called on him, and he said, yeah, Jacob, I have a question. Why is it different this time? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, change isn't new, right? Change has been around for thousands of years. In fact, change is the only constant that we know of. Things change all the time. And he says, you're up here talking about change. And he says, why should we pay attention to that? Why should we care about change now when, change happened a decade ago? It happened 2 decades ago. Change happens all the time. Who cares? And, I talk about this in my recent book that came out on the future of work as well. And I think there are a couple of reasons why it's quote unquote different this time. So the first thing that we see is the speed of change. And there's an analogy that a lot of people use to describe this, and it's sort of an analogy with, not sort of, it is an analogy to chess. And to do that, I have to share a brief story. So around 1,000 years ago, it's said that the game of chess was created, and a mathematician created the game of chess. He shows the game to the ruler of the land at the time. The ruler is very impressed with the game, and he says, this is amazing. You can have any reward that you want. So tell me what you want, and I'll give it to you. And Sissa, the guy's name, the mathematician, the inventor that created chess, he thought about it for a few minutes, and he says, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take 1 grain of rice and put it on the first square of the chessboard, take 2 grains of rice and put it on the second square, and double it and keep doubling it until you get to the very end. So you start on the first square with 1 grain and double it every square until you get to the very end, 64 squares. And so the ruler thought about that for a while, and he says, sure, that's fine. I mean, I can give you anything you want if all you want is rice. Sure. So he calls over his servants and he says, figure out how much rice this is going to be. Let's pay the guy off and just get rid of him. And so the servants go away for a while. They come back and they tell the ruler how much rice this is going to be. And the ruler can't believe it. In fact, it turns out there isn't this much rice that is even produced in the entire world today. We're talking about a Mount Everest of rice. And so the story goes that the mathematician, the inventor named Sissa, then became the ruler of the land because the ruler, the current king, couldn't pay his debt. Now, the whole point of the story is that when you get to the second half of the chessboard as far as growth goes, growth becomes exponential. So in other words, growth over time, we've sort of seen like this, right? This is what growth has been like. It's, change has been like this. But when you get to the second half of the chessboard, especially when you get to technology, when we think of technology, growth is no longer like this. It starts to go like this. In other words, it's exponential, almost going straight up. And most people, most technologists, people like Andrew McAfee, Eric Brynjolfsson, Ray Kurzweil, who's over at Google, most people say that today we're at the second half of the chessboard. We're just starting the second half of the chessboard. In other words, change today is much faster than we have ever seen before. So that's one reason why it's different, speed of change. Not just on the technology side, but on the behavior side. I think we're seeing a lot of changing behaviors happening very rapidly as well. So that's reason number 1, speed of change. The second reason is that we're seeing a connected world. Years ago when we started to see change, if you want to go back as far as the printing press, the steam engine, however far back you want to go, change has always been gradual, and it took a while for it to impact sort of the world, right? We didn't have this global connectivity where when one thing changes, everybody in the entire world can find out about it. So I think that's the second big reason why change today is different, because we're living in a connected world. Everybody can find out about things, easy to access information and people. And that's a very, very different world to live in when we start to see change happen, because it propagates much faster. And the third and final reason for why I think it's different this time is because change is disrupting absolutely everyone and everything. It's not like decades ago where if a new invention came about, it disrupted printing, or it disrupted travel, or it disrupted an industry at a time, and it was, relatively gradual. But today, look at what we're seeing. Change is happening in virtually every market and industry you can possibly think of. Look at how Uber is disrupting the transportation and logistics industry. Look at how companies like Square are disrupting payments. You look at companies like Box that are disrupting enterprise software. You look at companies like Fitbit, which are disrupting a lot of, medical devices, which we're starting to see. I mean, every industry you can practically think of. I can't think of a single industry. Robots and automation are disrupting manufacturing. IBM Watson is disrupting the medical field. It's disrupting the legal profession. All sorts of new marketplaces, new platforms, new technologies are disrupting pretty much every industry that you can think of. The freelancer economy and the sharing economy are disrupting traditional models and forms of employment and jobs. I mean, everything is different. I can't think of a single industry or a single company that is immune to disruption. So I think that's the third and final reason why it's different this time, is that absolutely everything is changing. Every industry, every market, every company, every geography, everyone is going through some sort of change. And I think the quote that most people say is, you either disrupt or you get disrupted. And that's really what we're starting to see. So why is it different this time than it was, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago? Why is change different, and why should we be paying attention to it now more than ever? Again, 3 reasons. The speed of change, a connected world, and everything is getting disrupted. Those are the 3 reasons why it's different this time. Curious to hear what you think. Leave me a comment. Let me know what do you think about this? Are there is there something I missed? And what sort of changes are you starting to see, both at work and maybe in your personal life? Of course, if you want to get access to more videos, you can always visit thefutureorganization.com and click on the Future in 5 box. You can also, of course, check out all the other videos on YouTube by clicking the YouTube playlist. I'm on Twitter @JacobM if you want to connect with me and share and have more conversations there. And of course, if you work for an organization that's interested in exploring what the future of work is going to look like, and you want to connect with other large or small or medium-sized companies from around the world, I encourage you to visit the FOW community. That is FOWcommunity.com. I'll see you next time on an episode of The Future in 5. Hey, are you interested in the future of work? If so, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can get all the latest content on the future of work and stay up to date on all the latest trends and happenings. Not to mention, you will make me very, very happy. Make sure to subscribe.